ask you a question. Have you ever gone into a Facebook group and asked a question about your home renovation or your new build project? I think most of us have at some point in time, haven't we? And while I'm a huge fan of a Facebook group, look, I think I'm a member of at least 32 groups at last count, but I also see them creating more confusion and overwhelm for unsuspecting homeowners when said homeowner asks a certain type of question. And that's what I'm going to share today about what that question is and how you can avoid it. Hi, my name is Sarah and I'm from the Zen Reno, and in this video I want to share why the questions people are asking in Facebook groups are often making them more overwhelmed and confused than they already are, especially when the question is being asked to gain some sort of clarity. Let me share a story with you. Recently I was in a Facebook group, and it's a pretty popular one and has lots of members, and I saw a post where a lady asked a question. And the question was a really pretty simple one at face value, and that it was, how much did you spend on landscaping? That's it. That was the question. And after about half an hour, there were 128 comments, and every single one of the comments involved a monetary figure. Each one bigger than the last, and it felt more like a bragging contest than anything else. And it was more about how much money they had spent on their landscaping versus any actual really useful information for this lady at all. And the lady who originally posted felt more and more shocked as each figure came in. And she was commenting things like, that's more than half my budget. Looks like I'll have to forget about landscaping for a while. Things like that. And she became more and more freaked out, feeling that there was no way that she'd ever be able to afford any landscaping at all. The actual answer to her question, and I wrote this to her, was it actually depends. And it depends on so many factors, but firstly it depends on what she actually wants to do and include in her landscaping budget. How much hardscape items and things like that does she want to do? And by hardscape I mean paving and walls and fencing and structure, things like that. Things that need to be built. And how much soft landscaping like plants and grass, etc. does she want to include as well? Without having an idea around what you actually want to include, then any figure actually means pretty much nothing. So when people posted figures like $50,000 or I spend $100,000, I mean, what does that mean? So what she really should be thinking about was, what did she actually want to do for her landscaping budget? You know, what did she want to include? Did she want to include a driveway? And so how long was it and what was it made of? What about fencing? And again, what type, how much? Was the property sloped? So will it need retaining walls? And again, how much, how long, how high? What are they made of? And then what about earthworks preparation to the site before laying grass and plants? How much paving did she want to do? What about structures, a pool maybe? What about letterboxes, clotheslines, carports, electric gates, irrigation, lighting? And the list goes on and on and on. And for the record, all these things are typically part of a landscaping budget. So even if she was just thinking about grassing her entire block, for example, then what is the size of her block? Does she need to lay 100 square metres of grass or 250 square metres of grass? And I think you can see that right there that each scenario offers a completely different cost. So can you see how asking these really open-ended questions can create more confusion than they solve? And it's really a pointless exercise in a lot of cases as well. So if you're going to ask a question, then make it as specific as possible, even including your location, because that too can have an impact on what it might cost you. I also see a lot of people asking, questions like, should I use this tile or should I use that tile? Putting it essentially out to committee. And once again, the answer requires more questions. What's the style or look that you're after, for example? Are you after a Hampton style look or a rustic or industrial or whatever? The answer to these types of questions will to some extent dictate the actual answer. And think about your circumstances and what's important to you. Do you have kids or pets? Is durability a priority? Or do you need it to be easy to clean or to keep clean? Or is your budget really tight? And are you building your forever home or just a quick flip? Obviously, the visual part of your decision is important, but there are so many other factors that you need to consider when you make any choice or decision. And actually thinking about all these other things may seem to add to the feeling of overwhelm, but if you actually have a really clear picture of what all of these things, these other priorities are, then there's a really good chance that you can really start to get some clear direction on which is actually the better choice for your project, because this clarity will actually filter out a lot of the available options and allow you to make easier decisions and choices. And if you still need to ask the question in the group, and if you include these detailed criteria pieces in your question, the answers will be way more valuable. Not to mention, if you're clear on your answers to these questions, you may not even need to ask the question in the group in the first place. So, as I said before, I love me a good Facebook group. I have one, by the way, so join us if you like. Just click the button below the header image. And there's an enormous amount of great advice that they have to offer. But what you really need to think about is the quality of the question that you're actually asking. You need to be very specific and frame it really clearly, otherwise the advice may not be worth much at all. And it may actually add to your confusion rather than make you feel more clear about what you want to do. Look, renovating and building a new home requires you to make an enormous amount of choices and decisions. And these are so much easier to make if you have a really clear vision for what you actually want to achieve. When it comes down to making the detailed material and fitting choices, then a mood board or something like that can be really useful. So spending the time getting really clear on this will be worth its weight in gold and will save you heaps of time and angst and stress and overwhelm over the course of your project. In my program, The Art of Home Renovation Success, we actually spend quite a bit of time clarifying your vision to help you get clarity and focus on your project right from the start. So the moral of the story is to be careful what you ask for or what you ask in a Facebook group. And if you do seek advice, for example, make sure your question is really clear and detailed so you can get some useful advice. Thanks for listening. I hope this has been useful. If you want a place to ask your question and get quality answers, or at least get asked the questions to qualify your original question so you get good advice, join our Facebook group Home Renovation Success. We'd love to have you. That's it for today. Until next time.